So download the live script from Carmen. And let's just review how to use an if structure. All right, so you use an if statement when you want to either do or not do a block of code, depending on conditions. All right, so let's say we have the user enter his height and weight. We calculate his body mass index. And then we want to print out what his weight classification is. You know, is it normal, underweight, overweight, obese? All right, so first we check, is his BMI above 30, greater than or equal to 30? That would be classified as obese. All right, so if that's true, then it'll do this. The next one, and notice the way I've done it, doing it in this first example, is just if and. Okay, I'm not doing an else yet. So either it's going to do this or it's not going to do it. End of story. And then we go to the next one. All right, so then we ask, is it between 30 and 25? If so, then you print out overweight. Then we ask, is it less than 18.5? If so, that's underweight. And then finally, between 18.5 and 25, normal. All right, so the way we're doing it here, each one of these if statements stands alone, which means each one has to be evaluated every time. All right, so let's go ahead and run it once. Let's say height of 69 inches, weight of 200 pounds. Okay, so it came out as overweight because the value of BMI came out to be 29.5. All right, so for it asks, is BMI greater than or equal to 30? No, it's not. So it doesn't do this. Then it goes to the next one. Is it less than 30? And is it greater than or equal to 25? Yes, it is. It's in that range. So it prints this one out. Then it asks, is it less than 18.5? No, it's not. So it doesn't do that. And is it between 18.5 and 25? No, so it doesn't do that. All right. So that's one way to do it. But this is not really the best way to do it. I mean, it's kind of clunky and also inefficient in the sense that each one of these is going to have to be evaluated every time, even though at this point we've already determined that he's overweight. But because of the way we wrote the code, we still have to check, is either of these true, even though they can't be because this one was true. All right, so there's a better way to do it. And the next way we'll look at it is, what if you have an if-else? Okay, so that's where you have two possibilities you're choosing between. All right, so that's not ideal for what we're trying to do here, but for right now, let's just say we just want to print out a message telling the user whether he is or is not classified as obese. All right, so we'll just ask, is his BMI greater than 30? If so, we'll say you're considered to be obese. Otherwise, we'll say you are not considered to be obese. Okay, just one or the other. All right, so if I put 69 and 210 pounds, you are considered to be obese, right? Because BMI came out to be 31. If I put 69 inches and 190 pounds, you are not considered to be obese because that was 28.0. The key thing to understand with this is, with an if-else, it will always do one or the other, right? If the condition is true, it'll do the first one. Otherwise, it'll do the second one. So you don't put any condition with the else. There's no need for a condition with the else. It's just if this condition was not true, then it does what's in the else, right? And keep in mind, you know, I'm just, all these simple examples, I just have one line of code here, but of course it could be a very complex block of code. All right, so that's if you're switching between two possibilities. But if you have several possibilities and want to choose one, you can do that with if, else, and there can be multiple else ifs. All right, so here, first we ask, is his BMI greater than 30? If it is, we print your weight classification as obese. Otherwise, we go to the next one. And we ask, well, is it greater than 25? If it is, we print overweight. Otherwise, we go to the next one. Is it greater than 18.5? Yes, print that out. No. And finally, we get to the else. So if none of these were true, then it'll print whatever's in the else block. All right, so with an if, else, it will always do one of the possibilities and only one. All right, as soon as it finds one of these conditions that's true, that's the block of code that it does, and then it skips down to the end. All right, let's do 210. All right, so BMI came out to be 31. So it printed your weight classification as obese. All right, so the first one was true. So it printed that out, and then it just skips down to the end. Okay, unlike the first one, okay, here each if was separate. So it was going to check each condition every time. Here, they're all integrated together. As soon as it finds one that's true, it skips the rest of them. All right, so this is a better way of doing it. Now, a couple of fine points. People often think, well, I need to put a compound condition like I did before. You do not need that. Because, remember, we already checked to see if BMI was greater than 30. If it was, we would have done this and then gone to the end. So if we've got to this point, we've already determined that it must be less than or equal to 30. So putting that there is redundant. It doesn't hurt anything, but you shouldn't put it. It's just a bad practice. Right? You don't need it. And again, with the else, you never put a condition. So another common, it's not, I can't really call it a mistake because it doesn't hurt anything, but just a bad practice. People will put a condition here. But again, that doesn't add anything because the way it works, if none of these previous conditions are true, it will do whatever's in the else clause. Putting this here changes nothing. Okay, so don't do that. All right, any question about any of those? All right, just one last point. You don't need an else necessarily. You can just have if, else, if, end. Which means in this case, it may or may not do one of these actions. Right? If one of these conditions is true, it'll do one of the actions. If none of them are true, it does nothing. So here's another way of accomplishing the same thing as the previous example. We can start out just by assuming the classification is underweight and only change it if one of these three conditions is true. All right, so if, let me do a case where it's underweight. So that would be 69, let's just say 100 pounds or something. Okay, so BMI came out to be 14.8. So that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. So it did nothing in this block, which means classification is still underweight, and that's what gets printed out. All right, so either of these last two examples are equivalent. They'll accomplish the same thing. It's just a matter of programming style now. All right, so we're getting into things now that are complicated enough that you will have choices that you can make. All right, and so whether you did this or this is your choice.